Hello everyone and welcome to the Anime Impressions Spring 2015 Anime Season Preview. We have a lot of shows to cover. I'm going to try to keep things moving as fast as I can, but don't forget that if you're watching this on YouTube, you can speed the video up via your settings. We have a lot of shows to cover, so let's go ahead and let's get started. So first up, I got a quick disclaimer for you. I want to let you know that this preview covers new full-length anime series. I don't cover movies, OVAs, shorts, things like that, and that all information is accurate to the best of my knowledge, but may contain errors or misinterpretations simply based upon the information that is available. For more information on the formats I don't cover, feel free to check out AnyChart.net or LiveChart.me. These are both great resources that I use to compile these preview videos. And you can find all the information on all those other types of shows that I do not cover there. Alright, so first up we're going to talk about the shows that are returning. These are shows that are getting new seasons or closely related spin-offs, things like that. And we're just going to run down the list, not going to look at them too much in detail because I assume that if this is a show you're interested in, you probably have a good idea of what it's all about. So first up, Baby Steps. And I'm just going to go down the list here. Digimon Adventure. This is actually Digimon Adventure Tri, which is based on the group from the first and second seasons. Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works comes back for its second season. We've got a new season of Gintama. Ghost in the Shell has a new series called Arise that's coming out. Kiniro Mosaic. Lupin the Third has a new series set in France coming out. High School DxD gets a new season. Knights of Sidonia comes back for its second season. Magical Girl Lyrical Nanoha is getting a new season. My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu also getting a second season. Mysterious Joker comes back. Nisekoi is getting a second season. Pre-Para. Saint Seiya is getting a new series. The Fruit of Grizia, Eden, and Labyrinth. I believe Labyrinth is a 1-hour special, and then Eden is going to be a full series. Utana Prince Sama is getting a new season, and then finally Ace of Diamond is getting a new season as well. So those are all the shows that are returning in spring. And that brings us to the brand new shows. So we have 23 shows to go through. So let's go. We're going to start things out with Blood Blockade Battlefront. Alright, this is a show about how a breach has sort of appeared over New York City, and it's trapped the citizens of New York under this dome with creatures of the netherworld. And they've been living together peacefully, but now someone is trying to break open the dome, and the protagonists, who all have supernatural powers, are trying to prevent this from happening. This is being done by Studio Bones, who worked on Fullmetal Alchemist, Soul Eater, Ouran High School Host Club, among others. And the bottom line here is that Studio Bones does amazing work as far as their animation and stuff is concerned, and they've created some of my favorite shows, Ouran High School Host Club, Fullmetal Alchemist, Soul Eater, things like that. The PV for this show was great, and it's also based on a manga by the author of Trigun, so I am sold. Like, that is just a combination of things that is absolutely awesome, and I'm very excited for this show. Next up, we have Food Wars. Alright, and in this show, the main character is the son and apprentice to a master chef, and one day his dad comes home and he's like, hey, I'm shutting down the restaurant, I'm going overseas, I'm going to go cook, and he's like, well, what am I going to do? And he gets sent to a prestigious culinary school that only has a graduation rate of about 10%. So it's a really tough school, and the show follows the main character as he progresses through this school. It's being done by JC Staff, who's done Toradora, Ghost Hunt, and Bakuman, among others. And the bottom line here is that this show has food, it's got cooking, it's got battle, it's got comedy. It looks great in terms of animation. And the PV had me cracking up over the reactions to people eating food and stuff like that. And the food looks really good. And just overall, the show looks like it's a really, really good time. Like it's going to be really fun to watch. So this looks pretty awesome to me. Next up, we have Gunslinger Stratos, and this is an adaptation of a Square Enix game. The plot's being written by Gin Urobuchi? Man, pronunciation today is just all kinds of off. I apologize. But in this show, Japan's been split into two parallel worlds. One is sort of like the rebels from Star Wars, where everybody's, kind of like free and full of outlaws and things. And the other side's like the Empire, where it's totalitarian state and very rigid and structured. And those worlds start to merge together, and when that happens, each nation, each world, essentially, sends two teams or sends their own team back in time, and apparently the teams have to fight each other, and whichever team wins, their nation, their world will be the one that survives. This is being done by A1 Pictures, who has done How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend, Silver Spoon, Blue Exorcist, all kinds of shows. And the bottom line on this one is that, A1 Pictures is great, and you could always expect a good story from Urobuchi, but I'm not entirely sold on the character designs or the concept. I mean, the concept does sound kind of interesting, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe they'll explain it better. Hopefully they will. And this is the type of show I almost never get excited about. It's very sci-fi and seems to revolve around, guns and things. It's based on a video game, so they kind of have to highlight the stuff that you do in a video game. But the trailer itself, it doesn't look too bad, so, I'm not completely uninterested. I'm pretty neutral on this one. Next up, we have Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, which has a subtitle of Familiar Myth. And in this show, the main character lives in a town that's like famous for its dungeons, and basically he wants to be a dungeon crawler, and he wants to do it for the ladies. That's pretty much why. He wants to pick up ladies by being a super cool dungeon crawler. And so in order to do that, he forms his own guild where it's just him. And he ventures out into the dungeons, and on one of his dungeon runs, he finds out that it ain't exactly as easy as he thinks, and he almost gets killed by a minotaur, but he's rescued by a beautiful damsel, and this kind of leads to him wanting to be like her, and blah blah blah. So it's all about dungeon crawling and some dude trying to impress the ladies. This is being done by JC Staff, and the bottom line here is that the show looks really fun. I'm a big sucker for fantasy shows, so it gets points on that for me. So maybe if you're not a big fan of fantasy shows, it won't appeal to you as much. But the artwork looks really good. The trailer was very well done. My only concern is that, with JC Staff, they have a tendency to let their romances go nowhere. And in a show that, has romance, I prefer for something to actually happen with the romance. At this point, I've seen plenty of shows where the romance goes nowhere, and that kind of drives me crazy. So that's my only concern. But I am still really looking forward to this one, and I think that it looks pretty promising. Next up, we have Etotama, and this show is about a cat of Chinese astrology, and she's trying to become one of these zodiac animals, like the cow or the dragon or the tiger or the rabbit. And somehow in the process of trying to become part of the zodiac, she winds up staying with a high school boy who lives at home alone, and I guess the show kind of covers their interactions and her process of trying to become part of the zodiac. It's being done by Shirogumi, who did Moyashiman and Antique Bakery. And the bottom line here is that I think the premise is pretty interesting. I can't think of many shows where you have, all these characters from the Zodiac interacting. And the art looks pretty good. There's a lot of 3D battles that go on, but they don't look bad. They don't look, cheesy. They kind of go into this sort of chibi mode. I don't know. It looks interesting, but I am kind of worried that the show might turn into an excuse for all these all the zodiac animals are essentially girls with like cat ears or ram horns or whatever. And so I'm kind of worried that the show will sort of just be an excuse for them to uh, act inappropriately around this high school boy that they somehow end up, interacting with. But, it doesn't look terrible, doesn't look great, so I'm staying neutral on this one. And at number 6, we have Rainy Coco. And this show is about a college student who has a really bad day one day because he's riding on a train and some beautiful guy calls him ugly. And then afterwards, while he's moping around and depressed and stuff, he stumbles upon this cafe called Rainy Color, and eventually he begins working there. And then one day, that beautiful guy who called him ugly walks into the cafe. As of this video, the studio hasn't been announced yet. And the bottom line on this show is, it sounds kind of dumb. I don't know. It sounds kind of petty. Like, this guy got called ugly by some beautiful dude and basically lets it ruin, a portion of his life, which just sounds kind of dumb to me. And the plot itself is pretty vague. There's not a whole lot of information, but what is there doesn't interest me at all. I can't straight up say that I dislike it, but I'm pretty sure that I won't end up watching this one all the way through. So this is one of the few this season that I'm not interested in. Next up, we have Kyokai no Rine, and this is a show that is about a girl named Sakura who, when she's a child, she disappears into the woods for like a week, and then she comes back safe and sound, but for some reason she has the ability to see ghosts and other supernatural things. And once she gets to high school, she's hoping like, oh, this is when things are going to change, but in fact, they only get worse when she gets involved with a mysterious classmate of hers who works as a Shinigami, as a death god. This is being done by Brains Base, who has done Natsumi Yujincho, My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, and Assassination Classroom. And the bottom line on this one is that this is based on a manga by the creator of Ranma One Half and Uniyasha, so if you've seen either of those, you probably have a really good idea of what you're getting yourself into, because this does look very similar. Myself, however, I haven't watched Ranma One Half, and I've only seen some Uniyasha kind of off and on, so I'm excited to get to watch one of her works while it airs instead of having to go through a huge backlog of episodes. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, and I think that if you have seen Ranma One Half or Uniyasha, you're probably in for more of the same. So whether that's good for you or not, it depends on your personal tastes. But for me, hopefully it's going to be a new experience, and hopefully I'll like it, but I'm not sure, so I'm staying neutral on this show. Next up, we have My Love Story. This is a show that centers around 3 characters. You have Takeo Guda, who's the big dude that you saw up there, who is, he's big, intimidating, but he's a really nice guy. And he's best friends with this super gorgeous guy who basically treats girls like dirt. He doesn't treat them like dirt. He has no interest in girls because they constantly throw themselves at him because of how gorgeous he is. And one day, Takeo rescues this girl from this molester on a train. And in the process, she kind of wants to pay him back and, show her thanks and stuff like that. And what we hope is that romance ensues from all that. Finally, Takeo is going to be the one who gets the attention from a beautiful girl or something. This is being done by Madhouse, who has done Trigun, Den-O Coil, Chihaya Furu, all kinds of stuff. Tons and tons of shows by Madhouse. And the bottom line here is that this looks like a really, really good romantic comedy. Once again, just like I mentioned before, I hope that the romance actually goes somewhere and isn't just full of teasing and ignorance. But we'll have to see. Either way, I'm really, really excited about this. I read the first chapter of the manga, and I thought it was pretty good. And I think this show is going to be really awesome. And it helps that it's Madhouse and not a different studio doing it, because I feel like the romance may actually potentially go somewhere. So, like I said, I think this show is looking pretty awesome. Next, we have Punchline. There is not a whole lot to go on for this show. The plot is that the main character's spirit has been separated from his body, and the tagline for the show is, "Once he sees underwear, humanity is destroyed." I don't know. That doesn't tell me a whole lot. It tells me it might have a little bit of ecchi going on, based on panties and the destruction of the world. I'm not sure. It's being done by MAPPA, who has done Kids on the Slope, Rage of Bahamut Genesis, and Terror in Tokyo. And the bottom line here is that I don't know what type of show this is going to be. I don't know what the plot is supposed to be, but there are a couple PV videos out, and they are awesome. They look great. There's tons of good music. It's very colorful. There's lots going on. The quality looks great. And purely based upon those, I'm really, really excited about this show, and I think this show is going to turn out to be pretty awesome. Next, we have Rikan, and this is a show similar to Kyokai no Rine, in that it stars a girl who can see ghosts and other supernatural phenomena. However, there's a lot less information about the plot and stuff for this one. So essentially, the show is just going to follow the daily lives of this girl and her friends. This is being done by Studio Pierrot, I believe that's how you say that, who has worked on Naruto, Tokyo Ghoul, and Survival Game Club. And the bottom line on this one is that, like I said, there's not a whole lot of information. The concept has been done a lot, and in fact is being done in a different show this season. But the art isn't too bad, and it's based on a 4-koma or 4-panel manga, so there's a good chance that it's going to be kind of funny. So I'm staying neutral about this one. I don't think it's going to be terrible, but I don't have enough to go on to think that it's going to be really good. So neutral it is. Next, we have Seraph of the End. In this show, basically a virus has killed the entire human race except for children. And those children are kind of enslaved by vampires and treated sort of like cattle for their blood. And the main character has lost everything, his family and everything else, his entire world. And now he wants to join this elite anti-vampire military force, and he wants to become strong enough to kill all the vampires. So sounds kind of typical. But it's being done by Wit Studio, who's done Attack on Titan, Hozuki no Reitetsu, and Rolling Girls. And the bottom line is, the PV looks awesome. The music is great. The little bit of fight scenes that they show look awesome. Wit Studio is great at animating their shows. The character designs look awesome, and the music is being done by the guy who worked on Attack on Titan, Aldno Zero, Blue Exorcist, Seven Deadly Sins. They all have really impressive music, especially Attack on Titan and Aldno Zero. So I am super excited for this one, and think that this one looks really, really awesome. Next up, we have Show by Rock. And in this show, by Rock, a cat girl named Cyan gets hired by a music agency and joins a band called Plasmagica. Together, they compete against other strange bands to become the top band in Mid-Eye City. And when I say other strange bands, I mean that they have weird instruments and look weird too. This is being done by Bones. And the bottom line here is that I like music, and I think the characters and the bands look pretty ridiculous, but in a good way. Like, the characters, all sort of have like a weird animal hybrid thing going on, which is one thing, but when I was looking at the website, looking at the different instruments they had, the way that they did, like, the difference between each different drum set and stuff was just really, really interesting to me. The show's produced by Sanrio, who has done like Hello Kitty and a bunch of kids shows. And initially, it wasn't announced that Bones was the studio that was, animating it. So I was kind of like, Sanrio, Hello Kitty, what are they trying to do? So I kind of had a bad impression of the show at first, and then they throw in Studio Bones, and they put out a PV, and the PV looks pretty good. The music in it was pretty interesting, and I was like, well, I don't know what to think anymore. So I'm staying neutral. I might go so far as to say that I am pretty interested in this one, but I can't say that it's going to turn out good or not. So I'm just staying neutral. The next show is Sound Euphonium, and this is a show by KyoAni, and in it, we have a music club that used to always go to the Nationals. Then their advisor changed, and they sort of fell into ruin. And now their advisor has changed again, and that advisor wants to bring them back to their former glory and take them to the Nationals again. And the show follows the daily lives of these student musicians as they strive for that goal. So like I said, this is being done by Kyoto Animation, who has done My Ordinary Life, Clannad, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, all kinds of shows. And the bottom line here is that KyoAni puts out a lot of good, emotional, moving anime. And they also did K-On!, which I never finished. So I'm not sure how great they are at music shows. Because since this is primarily, obviously with KyoAni, it's going to be about the characters as well. But, music is going to be a large portion of it. But I'm a musician and a music lover, so I'm hoping for good things from this one. I like the kind of band approach that they're taking. And, I don't know. The question for me is it going to be better than Your Lie in April? And the answer is probably not. But that doesn't mean that it can't be good. So I'm staying hopeful for this one. I think that it looks pretty promising. Next, we have the disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan. And speaking of KyoAni, this is a spin-off of The Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi, where Nagato is the shy president of a small literature club. And the story revolves around her and her relationship with Kyon, primarily, because they kind of have like a thing going. And instead of KyoAni, this is actually being done by Satellite, who has worked on Log Horizon, Fairy Tail, and Air Gear. And the bottom line here is that, I want to believe this is going to be as awesome as its source material, but it probably won't be, because Haruhi was awesome at the time that it came out, at least. But this does look like it's going to be a nice rom-com starring characters I'm already familiar with. It does look pretty good, but I'm going to stay neutral on this one. And at number 15, The Heroic Legend of Arslan. This is a show about Prince Arslan, whose kingdom is betrayed and falls under the reign of this fanatical, religiously fanatical group of people called the Lustanians. And during the fall of his kingdom, Arslan manages to escape, and he begins to assemble a team of allies to try to reclaim his homeland from this huge army of over 300,000 Lustanian soldiers. This is being done by Leiden Films, who worked on Sinew, Ayura, and Terraformers. And the bottom line here is that this is an adaptation being drawn by Hiromu Arakawa, who is the author and artist of Fullmetal Alchemist and Silver Spoon. And this is a epic fantasy action adventure series, and it kind of gives me some 12 Kingdoms vibes. And it's being directed by the same guy who directed Yu Yu Hakusho. So I am 100% sold on this show and super excited and think that it looks awesome. Next up we have Triage X. And in this show, our main character is a high school student who also happens to be a part of Black Label, which is a group of assassins that target the scum of society. And this group is everybody in the group is holds some sort of position at a hospital. So you've got nurses, doctors, surgeons, pharmacists, all that kind of stuff that are all assassins and part of Black Label. This is being done by Zebek, who worked on Cult Academy, Pandora Hearts, and, throwing it old school here, Outlaw Star. The bottom line here is that this is a Kame ga Kill with nurses, scantily clad nurses with lots of plot. I really just hope that there's more plot and less repetitive killing in this show, but the chances are it will be more plot and repetitive killing instead. But maybe it'll surprise me. This could go either way. It could be, really cool deaths and have some sort of underlying plot that continues throughout the show, or it could just turn into repetitive assassinations while throwing boobs and butts all over the place. So I'm going to stay neutral about this one until I see a couple episodes. Next we have Urawa's Rabbit, and there's not a whole lot of information out about this show. It's basically being created to promote the city of Urawa in Saitama, Japan, and each girl that's in the show represents a station in the prefecture. So I kind of think maybe it'll be something along the lines of Local Dolls. The studio hasn't been announced either. So the bottom line is that there's almost no information about this show. We have a little bit of information. There's no videos. We just have a couple of pictures and stuff. So it's really hard to judge whether the show is good, bad, looks interesting, boring. I don't know. But I've watched some pretty good slice of life shows that revolve around a group of girls, such as Local Dolls, Hana Yamata, or Is the Order a Rabbit? And I enjoyed those quite a bit. So I'd like to stay positive. But just based on the lack of information, I'm going to remain neutral on this show until some more stuff comes to light. Next up, we have Plastic Memories. Now, in this show, it's set in the future, and androids that look like humans have been created, and there's a particular type of android called a Griftia, which is almost entirely human, has really, really complex emotion, like a human. But the technology that makes them have that emotion has a service life, and once that service life is expired, once that period of time is over, things get bad. Now, it doesn't specify, but it kind of sounds like maybe they go a little bit crazy and start, wrecking stuff and things like that. It doesn't say that, but that's kind of the impression that I was getting. The main character is an employee at a division in the company that creates Griftia that retrieves expired Griftia that have gone past that service life period. And his main partner is actually a Griftia herself. The studio working on this is Doga Kobo, who has done Love Lab, Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun, and Engaged to the Unidentified. And the bottom line on this one is that I loved Engaged to the Unidentified and Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun. So the studio gets my vote already. The concept sounds really interesting. There's some complexities there in the fact that his partner is going to expire at some point, which kind of maybe feels like Black Bullet in a way. But it provides an interesting spin in that that this conflict is eventually going to come and they're going to have to deal with it. And compared to most other Android-related shows that are of a sort of lighthearted comical nature, where the plot usually consists of, android girl unknowingly doing inappropriate things to her shy, introverted master, this plot sounds way, way more interesting than those. So I'm keeping an eye out for this one, and I think that it looks pretty promising. Next we have Wish Upon the Pleiades. I believe that's how you say that. I'm not sure. This show spawned out of a series of commercials and webisodes that Gainax did in collaboration with Subaru, the car manufacturer. And it features girls that have magical brooms that they use, and the brooms look a lot like car frames. They look like they have like a front and rear bumper. They make car noises and stuff like that. And the girls are searching for these fragments in order to help an alien return home. Sorry about that and there. An alien return home. This is being done by Gainax, who did Gurren Lagann, Fooly Cooly, and Corpse Princess. And the bottom line here is that everything that Gainax makes is pretty to look at, but I don't know if Magical Automobile Girls is going to keep me entertained. The PV doesn't look bad, but it doesn't have anything that really catches my eye either, so maybe at the least the show will be worth watching for all the sparklies that Gainax puts into it. So I'm remaining neutral on this show. And at number 20, we have Yamada-kun and the Seven Witches. Now, this is an interesting show because it basically revolves around body swapping. So the best and worst student in the school discover that kissing makes them swap bodies due to the worst student. I believe it's like his power. Which in turn leads them somehow to discover that there are 7 witches in their school, and they set out to discover the identity of the witches, as well as encounter all the other weird stuff that's going on in their school. This is being done by Leiden Films, and the bottom line on this one is that Leiden Films doesn't have too much history, but I liked Ayura. I also watched Senyu, and that was pretty good too. Those are both short animes, or anime. And the animation quality on both of those were good, so I'm expecting the animation quality on Yamada-kun to be good as well. And the premise of the show sounds fun, and like I said before, I'm a sucker for fantasy, so all in all, it's got a lot of elements that appeal to me, and I think that it's going to be pretty good. I did watch the OVA and read the first chapter of the manga, and those were both entertaining enough. They weren't phenomenal or anything, but they were both fine, fun to watch. So I think this one looks promising. Next up we have He is an Ultimate Teacher. Now these next 3 shows were announced kind of later on, just within the past couple of weeks here. So they kind of came out of nowhere. But He is an Ultimate Teacher is a show about a main character who was like this genius science student when he was in high school and college, and then after college he just became a NEET. Obsessed with his anime blog, and just kind of like devoted everything that he had to that and didn't worry about his career or anything, just kind of stayed at home and did his own thing. And his sister doesn't want to see his talents go to waste, so she kind of coerces him into teaching at the academy that she attends as a science teacher. And the show sort of revolves around him and his interactions with the students, and kind of brings up his accomplishments from the past and things like that. And this is being done by A1 Pictures. And the bottom line is, initially I thought the premise for the show kind of sounded stupid. But I read the first chapter of the manga, and it turned out to be pretty decent. So I think the show has some good potential, and I'm looking forward to see what happens with it. I think I was really surprised because the manga didn't go in the direction that I thought it would, and that's why I think that it has some good potential. Also, A1 Pictures is doing the animation and everything, so at the least it's going to look good, and I think this show looks pretty promising. Next up, we have Mikagura School Suite, and in this show, we have a girl named Eruna who enters this mysterious high school because of its beautiful girls and cute outfit. Got some light Yuri vibes with this one. But much to her surprise, she becomes a club representative, not a club representation, sorry about that. Only to find out that the club representatives battle each other with supernatural powers to determine their treatment. So she, she's in it for the girls and the cute outfits, and all of a sudden they bring all these supernatural powers and stuff into play out of nowhere. And this is being done by Doga Kobo. And as I mentioned before, for the bottom line on this one, The studio gets my vote for its previous works. The director for the show was also the director for 1 Week Friends, which I enjoyed as well. And I like having a lighthearted premise that involves special abilities, battles. We've got a talking cat, all kinds of stuff that just looks like it's going to be really fun to watch. So I think this show looks pretty promising. Next and last, we have Narudoma. And there's not a lot of information on this one. It's based on a webcomic. It's a gag anime that focuses on 2 characters. One is hugely narcissistic and the other is masochistic. And they are surrounded by other strange people, and the anime kind of follows their adventures as a group of very weird people. The studio hasn't been announced yet, and the bottom line on this one is, there's just not a lot of information. There's a little bit more information, I think, than we had for Urawa's Rabbit, but this is a close second. I couldn't actually find a translation of the manga to check out. There's no studio, no staff or anything, so I have no idea. Overall, I'm not very excited about it, so this is the other show from this season that I am not interested in. So that brings us to the end of the new show previews and on to my top picks. So my top picks for returning shows, these are shows that are coming back that I'm really excited about. In at number 3, we have My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu. The first season was incredibly enjoyable to me. I love shows that have witty banter, and this show was like 100% witty banter all the time. So I'm really excited to see this one come back for a new season. And at number 2, Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works. Because, duh. I mean, what can I say? This show was phenomenal during the fall season. Was absolutely great. Great animation quality. I thought the pacing was awesome. Fight scenes, great. Just fantastic show, and I'm really looking forward to the second season. And then in at number 1 for me for returning shows is Nisekoi. And this beats out Fate Stay Night purely for the feel-good factor. I love the first season of Nisekoi. I'm not typically someone who, would rate a harem show very high on my list of favorite shows, but I just love the characters in Nisekoi. And, I think that the interactions and stuff that they have are very interesting and entertaining. And, at the end of the day, a lot of times I like to sit down and I like to watch something that is, not full of drama and stress, and it's just, fun to watch and entertaining. And I think Nisekoi does a really good job of that. So that's why it is my number 1 top pick for a returning show for spring 2015. Now moving on to my top 7 picks for brand new shows. Basically, I'd take the total number of shows, divide them by 3, round them down, and that is the number of top picks that I'll have. This time that happened to be 7. So I think I had a very strong top 5. It was pretty easy for me to get a top 5, no problem. Those last 2 slots, however, there are so many interesting looking shows, and so many shows that, like I said, the top 5, there's some shows that I just knew. Bam. Like, these are going in the top 5 no matter what. But then there's, so many other shows that could have filled those last 2 spots. So it was really hard to narrow it down. And especially this number 7 slot, there were probably 6 or 7 shows that could have gone here. So at the end, I decided to go with Yamada-kun and the 7 Witches. And the reason that I put this as my top 7 as opposed to one of those other 5, 6, 7 shows that were available is because this has the most information out. It has a manga that I've read the first chapter of. It has an OVA that I've already watched. So, I have sort of proof that, this show is going to be pretty good. And that's why it slid in at number 7 over some others. In at number 6 is Blood Blockade Battlefront. And this hits my number 6 because it's done by the author of Trigun. It's being animated by Bones. It looks cool. There's so many good, so many good factors in this show that it definitely deserved a top 7 spot. The reason it's at number 6 and not a little bit higher is because personally, I'm not a huge fan of the sort of like jazz, cowboy bebop style music that they used in the PV, and some of the backgrounds and stuff like that, while not bad at all, just don't appeal to my sensibilities. So as opposed to me just being overwhelmed with how awesome everything looked, there were little points here and there where I was kind of like, that's not really my style. But it didn't stop it from looking absolutely awesome, and so that's why this comes in at number 6. And at number 5 is Punchline. And I know there's not a lot to go on for this one, but I am so impressed by the promotional videos that they have put out for this show that I just I can't not include it. And the music was just great. I love colorful, artwork and things like that. And there's so much color and detail and things in the PVs for this. It does look like it might slide a little bit into ecchi territory, which is one of the genres I just hate. That is an anime genre. But every time I see a clip where I'm like, that might go further and slide into ecchi, it's always something that doesn't come across as the typical ecchi, and it looks like something that maybe I can tolerate. So even the bad point for that still looks like it's going to be pretty fun to me. And like I said, I'm just really impressed with the promotional videos for Punchline, to the point that it comes in at my number 5 for brand new shows. And at number 4 is My Love Story, because I read the first chapter of the manga and I was like, this is great. I like the character designs. I like the potential of where this story could go. Like I said, it's being done by Madhouse, so the romance might actually go somewhere. I'm a little bit hesitant about some things that I read in the first chapter that I don't want to reveal to you because I don't want to spoil anything. But when you see the first episode or read the first chapter, you'll know that I'm hesitant about some misunderstandings. And you'll understand where I'm coming from then. So I'm hesitant about that, and that's why it didn't make the top 3. But it did come in at number 4 because I love a good rom-com. Nisekoi is my top 1 for returning shows, so a new rom-com that looks really good is definitely going to make my top 7. So number 4, My Love Story. Now we get to the top 3. These are the big, heavy hitters for me this season that I am really excited about. Number 3 is Seraph of the End. This just looks so good. I read the first chapter of the manga. It was a solid chapter. I wouldn't, say it was like phenomenal, but it was really solid, really good. The promotional video is just, the music, man. Attack on Titan, Al Noah Zero, the guy doing the music for those, which I thought the music for those was phenomenal, is doing the music for Seraph of the End, which has me super excited. I like the character designs. I like the uniforms for this anti-vampire unit. The little glimpses of fight scenes that they showed looked great. So I'm really stoked about this show. And the reason that it's number 3 and not number 2 or not number 1 is because I'm not really into the whole vampire thing. I wouldn't say that I instantly dislike vampires or anything, but like I said, I'm more of like a fantasy guy and stuff like that. And so, having vampires as like the antagonist is not the worst thing that could happen, but, it's not the best. So that's why it's in at number 3 instead of number 1 or 2. Still looks awesome. And Wit Studio doing the animation means it's going to be great. So that's my number 3. My number 2 is Food Wars. And Food Wars, I read the first chapter of the manga, loved it. Watched the PVs, the food looks so good. It looks hilarious. It just looks amazing. And this is actually getting quite a bit of hype as well from over in Japan and stuff. I believe this is one of the top most anticipated spring 2015 shows over there as well. And it just looks really good. And this is my number 2 show because within that top three, I've got to have a show that, doesn't look like it's going to be full of tense drama and violence and stuff like that. And this is kind of my show for that. I think that overall, this is going to be the best, most entertaining comedy show of spring 2015. And I love comedy shows. And so that's why this comes in at number 2, because you've got comedy, you've got food, but you've still got really good animation and production values. And some competition between the different students at the school. And so that brings us to number 1. And for me, the number 1 brand new show of spring 2015 is The Heroic Legend of Arslan. This, I can't even describe. It's so hard for me to describe how excited I am for this show. I read the first chapter of the manga, and I did this at a time when I was reading the first chapters of mini mangas that for the shows that are coming out this season. And after I read it, just for days and days afterwards, I kept wanting to go back to it. And I'm not a big manga reader, and the only reason that I read the first chapters was to have a better idea of what these shows are about for this preview video. And, after I read this, like I said, just for days afterwards, I was like, man, I want to go back and I want to read more. I want to read more of this manga, and I haven't done it. But this was the show that just kept coming back to my mind over and over. It helps that the artwork is done, by the artist for Fullmetal Alchemist, because I really like her art style. The show in general just gave me lots of vibes of 12 Kingdoms, which is one of my favorite animes. Junikoki, for those who only know the Japanese title. And so I'm so excited to see this epic war conflict that has a little bit of fantasy element in it. I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming amount of fantasy to it, but it just looks really, really good. And I'm really hoping that this is going to be a 52 episode show or something, and not a just a 23, 24 episode show. But we'll have to see. But that is my number 1 brand new show for spring 2015, The Heroic Legend of Arslan. So that's going to bring us to the end of the preview. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did like it, please keep an eye on my site during the upcoming season for anime reviews and impressions. You can hit it up at animeimpressions.wordpress.com. Thank you for your time, and I will see you guys on the next video for our summer 2015 video.